as Mark said, I am here to talk a little bit about Peakboard. First off, I'm going to introduce you to the company Peakboard, what we do, and then I have also brought a little live demo of how our product works and what you can do with it. Yeah, I hope that you guys are ready and enjoy the presentation. So first off, what is Peakboard? We aim to bring real-time data to the industrial workplace. So what does that mean? Data is all over your manufacturing and logistics areas, and there's many different data sources that you can potentially tap into, but only certain programs, products currently do that, and they only show very detailed information. And usually that information is not really aggregated for the people that are out there working in these areas. So what we want to do is we want to bring together all these different data sources and make that data available for the people in manufacturing and logistics, and also make it interactive for them. So a little bit about our background. Peakboard is a German company. We started 2016 in Stuttgart, Germany. That is in the southwestern area of Germany. And since 2022, we have our own entity here in the US with Peakboard America. We're located in Chicago, and I am also located there. So we offer full support and consulting from the US. Next up, here are some of our customers. As you can see, most of them in the manufacturing and logistics area. We have also implemented our product or our solution with customers in other industries, but that is what we mainly focus on. So if you have any data sources that are related to these industries, you might make use of Peakboard and visualize your data. Next up, how does it work, or where can you use Peakboard? So as you can see, what we're trying to do is we're trying to really bring out that information that is, all over those different data sources. And what you can do is, for example, create an information or overview screen, starting at the left here, where you just bring together certain KPIs, upcoming meetings, PDFs that you want to show, just to give people, kind of broad information of what's going on. Moving over to our manufacturing and logistics areas, which are the areas that, like I said, we focus on. You can have a target actual comparison where we connect, for example, to a machine and to your ERP system, bring those two different data pieces together in order to create those KPIs, which will also, little spoiler here, be the live demo that I'm going to show you here in a minute. And then we can also do things like truck loading and other use cases for the logistics area as well. So overall, we're trying to really put together these data pieces, make them interactive, and put them out there for the people to see and work with. Our value proposition is that our solution makes it super easy and agile to create these solutions. I'll show you how that works here in a minute, but it's a software and hardware. So using that software, you can easily create your own visualizations. The configuration is also really easy. We have a low code, no code approach, which allows pretty much anyone to create their own visualizations and work with Peakboard. And like I said, we have a big variety of data sources that we can connect to, allowing you to really visualize all the information that is out there. Some success stories or use cases of how Peakboard has been used with our customers. BWI produces suspensions for the automotive industry, and they use Peakboard to show an hour-by-hour target actual comparison for their produced parts. In this case, they do okay and not okay parts, as well as the hourly goal. And they use Peakboard to visualize this, also shows some stats as best hour or best hour this week. And this has two effects. One, it shows people where they're at, where they should be, and why they're not reaching their goals. But then it also really motivates them to reach their targets for the individual hours to reach their goal for today, and maybe even leave a bit earlier because they succeeded in reaching those targets. Another success story is by Bosch in the semiconductor industry, which is close to our headquarters in Stuttgart. They use Peakboard to visualize data in their, like I said, semiconductor manufacturing. And what they do is they have a lot of individual workstations where people do manual work. And in order to keep an overview of these workstations and allow shift leaders to quickly react to any issues, they use Peakboard as an interface where someone can call for help if they're missing a tool or if something happened at their workstation, and then the shift leader has an overview where he can quickly react to that. Yeah, they have been successful in the implementation and are currently using over 70 Peakboard boxes to visualize their data, or to make that functionality available at every workstation. How all of this works, I already mentioned. Peakboard is an all-in-one solution. So you're able to create your visualizations in Peakboard and then also deploy them using Peakboard. So we have a software side to our solution, which is called the Peakboard Designer. That is also what I'm going to show you here in a minute. And using the Peakboard Designer, you can set your connections to the data sources. You can create your designs, the logic behind manipulating the data, and the interactivity. And then as soon as you're done with that, you upload the visualization to our Peakboard box, which I'm going to talk about that in a second. But from there on, everything happens on that Peakboard box. This means that no additional infrastructure is required, no cloud connectivity is required, although we offer cloud connectivity. But you can run this in a completely local network environment if you decide that you want to. And also you can connect USB devices to the Peakboard box in order to connect, for example, a touchscreen, mouse and keyboard, or barcode readers, and really make those visualizations interactive. So speaking about the Peakboard box, it's a single board computer that you connect to a screen using HDMI. We have Wi-Fi and Ethernet for your network connection to those data sources that I was just talking about, and also USB to connect to these hardware devices. The Peakboard box runs the whole visualization, so everything happens on there, but it is accessible through a web interface or that cloud connectivity, which I'm going to go more into detail here in a second. Another solution would be connecting or deploying our Peakboard runtime on your own device. So let's say you already have devices in your manufacturing or logistics area and you want to use them to run the Peakboard visualizations on, you can certainly do that as well. This is called Bring Your Own Device, or BYOD. And this allows you to install that runtime on any Windows device and execute the visualizations on there as well. So you either can use the Peakboard box or your own device. And going into some use cases, this is kind of similar to what we implemented at Bosch. It shows a manufacturing line with the order information, in this case out of SAP, at an overview screen. And then we have our individual stations where either manual or automated work is happening. And what you can do at these stations is you can start or stop a job or a certain order that you're working on. And you also have that Andon field where you can report problems. And if you do so, these problems will show up on the overview screen. The Peakboard boxes can also talk to each other or communicate via other protocols, like for example MQTT, or also through a database. And making use of that functionality, we can share that information to the overview screen for shift leaders to quickly react to any issues happening in the manufacturing or logistics area. So that's just one of many use cases that you can implement with Peakboard. If I go into the Peakboard Designer, you'll see that, or when I go into the Peakboard Designer, you'll see that there's pretty much endless possibilities of how to implement Peakboard, but this I think is a really nice use case. And speaking about the cloud connectivity I was mentioning earlier, this is our solution to overview all of your Peakboard boxes, because as you can see right here, we already have 5 Peakboard boxes implemented for this solution, and keeping track of them in a centralized interface, you can use the Peakboard Hub. And the Peakboard Hub is a web interface that you can connect your Peakboard boxes to. It can be hosted locally or in the cloud. That's that cloud functionality I was talking about earlier. And if you do connect your Peakboard boxes to the Peakboard Hub, you get this overview of all your visualizations that are currently deployed. and you can remotely check what they're displaying right now. This is also really nice for someone who either works remotely or out of an office where he can't see the screens in the manufacturing and logistics areas. And this is completely optional, but it's a nice tool to keep track of your your processes going on. So this brings us to the general or the whole ecosystem of Peakboard. So we have the Peakboard boxes connecting to your data sources and also each other in order to visualize the data. This is the minimum requirement that we need. We need those Peakboard boxes to be able to connect to the data sources in order to visualize the data, or the own devices that you can also use. And then the Peakboard hub sits on top of that, like I said, optional, in order to allow you to keep track of what the Peakboard boxes are currently displaying. So yeah, this is Peakboard in a nutshell. I would now go over to some use cases. You can also find these on our templates.peakboard.com. Just check them out. You can see a lot of different use cases. And now I will switch over to the Peakboard designer and go into the live demo part of my, oops, that was a bit too early. You can also feel free to put any questions into the chat. I was going to show the slide a bit later, but yeah, put your questions into the chat. We'll answer them at the end of the presentation. But yeah, this is the Peakboard Designer, our software that you can use to create the visualizations. When you open the Peakboard Designer, you have useful links to our help, to video tutorials, templates, and so on. You can also check out the templates directly in the designer right here. So as you can see, a lot of different use cases that are also great as an inspiration, or if you want to copy the design of a certain template, you can do that as well. They're all free to use. We also have script examples that you can use if you want to create certain scripts, or if you're looking for a certain script to cover a functionality. But once you're ready to go, you can either choose from certain themes or just create a new file. I've already done that, and this is what you end up with. So this is the area where you actually create your visualizations in the Peakboard Designer. And up here, we have a menu where you can choose from many different options. I'm not going to go into detail here, but if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or reach out to me afterwards. If we right click on data, we can add our data sources. And as you can see, there's a big selection of different data sources that you can choose from. Up here, we have formats that are typically used in REST APIs. We have our ERP systems and files that we can connect to. And this would be more of your PLC and just machine-to-machine protocols that you can use. And down here, you have the Peakboard box and the Peakboard hub list that you can also use. Here you see extensions. So if you are using a system that is currently not within our data sources, we are happy to create an extension for you. This allows you to also connect to other data sources, and without having to wait for a new update, you can just add them on your own or have us create them for you to be able to connect, for example, to Tableau. So yeah, this is the data sources, and then you can also create variables to store information on the Peakboard box. You have scripts that you can create. These are the controls that you can use to create your visual layout. I will use these in a second. And then over here, we have our properties for these controls. So as you can see right now, I only have the screen, so I can change its background, I can change the transition and so on. But once I start adding controls, I will be able to manipulate the properties or change the properties of these controls as well, which is what I am going to do now. So let me start off by just adding some rectangles to kind of break up this visualization into different parts. So we'll start with a header, and then we will have two sections. So in this demo, like I said, I will be connecting to a PLC and also to SAP in order to visualize production data. And as soon as I'm done adding these rectangles and positioning them here, you can see this all works by just drag and drop, and really easy to use. So as soon as I'm done adding these, I can add my header, which in this case, I'm just going to call this line A33. position the header in here as well. I could now also add a logo if I wanted to. Let me just move the GoToWebinar layover here a little bit. And I can choose my font, the positioning of my text within this text field. I will align it and then just kind of center it in here. This is a live demo, so please excuse if something isn't perfectly positioned. Next thing I'm going to do is add a time data source because I want to display the time and also work with it a little more in a second. So I'll just add this, also drag and drop it onto the screen, and this creates a time data source for me. Now I can choose a format. Since we're in the US, we're going to have to use a custom format. We want to use our US format of hour, minute, and then AM, PM. I'll also position this and change the font. And now I have my header and the current time being displayed. Next up, I want to connect to my machine. In this case, we're using OPC UA for that. This is an open protocol that many PLC providers support at this point in time. So I'll just call this production data. Oops. And I paste my server URL. There we go. And now I can already load my endpoints. In order to connect to OPC UA, you have to use a client certificate, which I already went ahead and created. So I'm just going to select this client certificate and then connect to the OPC UA server. So the connection was successful. I can now go ahead and manage my subscriptions. In here, we have some demo data that from a example factory, which I'm just going to select this node in here. You can see some additional information. For those of you familiar with OPC UA, this is pretty similar to the OPC UA expert or UA expert. So I'll just select this node, and then I can already enable my listener and see that this is what my PLC is currently outputting via OPC UA. So I can click on save, which creates this new data source for me. I could now just drag and drop this onto the screen, create a text field or a table if I wanted to visualize the data like that. But we are going to add a bit more information through SAP, which usually holds order information. So adding that SAP data source, I'm going to call this production targets. Also looking at that time here. Yeah, production targets. This data source is a pull data source, so we have to select our reload interval. I'm going to leave this at 90 seconds here because we don't want to put too much load on our SAP system. But if you have a different data source that you want to query in a shorter time interval, you are able to put this interval down to 1 second. So we're really talking about, sorry, talking about real-time data here. I can now reuse my existing connection to connect to that SAP server and also put in my SQL statement, which is just a way to query SAP using our data source. I have prepared this query, so I can just go ahead and load my data. And this returns me the targets for the different lines that I have in my production. If I save this, I see that a second data source is created. And now, since I have 4 different lines in here, I want to filter for my line A33. And in order to do that, I can create a data flow. So if I right click on this, I can process data with a data flow. I'm just going to call this my line target. And in here, I have a variety of steps that I can apply to this data source. I could add a column, I could change the data type, aggregate, and so on. What we want to do is filter, and in order to filter, you can just right click on a certain value and select include only rows with this value. So we will do that and then click on OK. So as you guys can see, within minutes, we just connected to our PLC and to our ERP system. And next up, I want to visualize this data. So therefore, I am going to create a circular gauge that I will just drag and drop onto my screen as we're used to with the other controls, and just position this in here. Also add a little header for this area of the visualization. I will just call this production data. Oops. And now I have to connect my data sources to this. So for my current value, I want to use the production data, the OPC-UA data. And in here, if I had multiple columns or nodes connected, I could choose from those. Right now, I only have one, so I leave it at this. And for my maximum, I want to use the line target that I just filtered for my line, and we're going to use the target here. So if I click on OK, we can now see that this is our current value. This is how far we are within that target for today in this production line. And now I just increase the bar width a little bit in order to make it easier for people to see. Let's do 40 here. Don't want to make it too big. So if I preview this, this will actually simulate what the Peakboard box would display to us. And you guys can already see that within just a couple of minutes, we were able to connect to our data sources and visualize real-time data in our manufacturing area. This field was left empty on purpose. Don't worry about it. We will add some information here. So next up, I want to historize this information. And therefore, I can use the Peakboard Hub. And in here, I have already created a production history. Speaking and writing at the same time is kind of difficult. But yeah, we have our production history list in here, and I will just select this and all the columns that are in this list. And if I load this data, you guys can see that we have a column production line, which currently we only have this example for A33. So we could add more lines in here if we wanted to, but we'll just stick to this A33 line. We have our date and the parts that were produced on this date. So if I click on OK, this will add the production history Peakboard hub list. And what I can do now is just drag and drop this onto the screen and choose from my charts that are available for me. I want to use a column chart, and this automatically creates a column chart with the production history. As you guys can see, this is currently not referring to the correct information set. We will change that in a second, or data set. We will change that in a second. Let's just add a header here as well and call this production history. And if I double click on this control, I can change the binding, which we want to change to our date for the x-axis and our parts for the y-axis. And as soon as I do that, I see my day-to-day production history and the parts that were produced on this day. So now, in order to historize my data, I want to create an interactive button that workers can press at the end of their shift. So let's just add this button and call it end shift. And if they click on this button, we want to historize the data into the Peakboard hub. So if I double click on the button, I can create a script for that. And it will open the script editor here in a second. In here, I switch to block mode, and what I want to do is publish to an external system. I choose my Peakboard hub, and I want to add a row at the end. And now I can just go ahead and, using this block mode, drag and drop my time to the date. So we want to change the format here to month, day, year, just the US format. And we also, for the parts, want to get our value from the production data source. So this will connect to that data source. And for our line, we just want to put in A33. So I can save and close this. And as soon as I press this button, we will now historize our current produced parts into the Peakboard hub and the production history. Last thing I want to do here is add another button which allows us to call for help if anything is happening on that line. Let's just call it help. And here I want to send out an email if this button is clicked. So I want to again publish to an external system. I add my email building block. I could send an email with a screenshot or just a normal email. I will send a normal email in this case to my email address, which you can also reach out to me after the webinar if you have any questions, paulsudar@peakboard.com. The subject will be help needed at line A33. And now we could add content. For example, we could also add dynamic content, the value of our production data. I think we have to concatenate the text. Looking at that time, I'll just skip over this. You'd have to use text and then merge. But yeah, we'll skip this part. But yeah, as you can see, you can add more content to this email. And now, finally, let's just go into our preview one last time and see what this visualization looks like. For the Peakboard Hub, I just remember we have a reload interval of 90 seconds. I don't want to keep you waiting for 90 seconds. So I'll just change this to 10 seconds, click on preview again. And now if I, once the visualization initializes, we have the current production data, which it seems like the machine has just started. We have our history. We can call for help. We can end the shift, which I'll just wait for a couple more parts to be produced before I press that button. But if I do so, this new value should show up in here pretty much immediately. So 125 is today's date. We have a very low value, but that's when we press the end of shift button. So as you guys can see, this is a short demo of Peakboard, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed my presentation. And if there are any questions, feel free to put them in the chat now. I will switch over to my questions slide now. This is the right time to show it. Yeah, so thanks for your time today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.